to it, but we let, you know, little things kind of cloud our thinking. And I, you know, try to do my best, I guess, on a daily basis, and find with, you know, the books especially, just to try to put some conscious thoughts out there, but also show that, you know, if we can kind of try to turn that around in a way, and start from like this 90% of stuff that we agree on, and once we're like used to talking to each other as humans again, maybe we'll have a chance to solve some of these greater issues. Because at this point, it's people yelling at each other. And not that that's right, and there's some ugliness, and there's some darkness, and there's a lot of bad stuff going on right now. Just like there's always been. There's never not been bad stuff going on. I mean, let's get real. But if we really want to, a lot of it comes down to basically problems that are easy to solve, but not easy to solve because humanity or lack of humanity or generational embedded crap that gets lodged in the brain kind of sticks there and can make it hard. But I mean, I guess not to toot my own horn, but I've had some, you know, and when it comes down to it, I'm, you know, a very liberal-minded person. But I've had some very admittedly conservative people read my writing and like what I have to say because they know what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to poke past all of that. I purposely don't mention Democrats and Republicans in my book on purpose because I didn't want to bring that in at all. I talk about liberals and conservatives because really that's just, I mean, that's every party. I mean, a liberal Republican used to be a thing, you know, and not to get into too much of that conversation, but that's basically how the center has been moved to the right, so that way radicals that are in now thinking that they're the ones, you know, they're the more reasonably minded people, are actually the ones that were the crazies back then.
Right, the Republican Party has changed a lot since its creation, and so has the Democratic Party.
Well, sure,
you know?
Sure. The fact that Richard Nixon, the flaming liberal Richard Nixon, and the flaming liberal Ronald Reagan would be too liberal to get elected. I mean, yes, they did a lot of bad stuff, Nixon especially, the Southern strategy, and Reagan with busting the unions and everything else. But Reagan did fight to end nuclear weapons. Nixon started the EPA. I mean, started the EPA. So, I mean, what's that? I mean, what's that saying about how far we've gone?
I didn't check today, but is that still a thing, that EPA thing, or is that...
On paper.
Yeah, okay.
On paper, you know.
So the State Department's on paper,
Yeah.
not even.
That's what happens when you know, appoint people heads of departments and they vow their entire life and career to upend, you know.
It's a breakdown.
Yeah, it causes a major breakdown to everything. But
And from the ashes, the phoenix arises.
yes, most definitely. You know, I have hope for the future. I mean, you know, there's an internal optimist in me that always tries to look at the bright side of things because, you know, I could get swallowed up by the darkness a little too easily. But one thing that keeps me going is, and obviously I wasn't around, but, you know, study and through film and reading and books and all sorts of things. Similar to the 60s when things seemed very chaotic because people knew major change was afoot. There was people that were doing the changing and there were people that were fighting back against it, that couldn't handle it. Now, personal opinion, I think that we're in that time again. I think we're basically in the time where there is a shift coming. The newer generation, it doesn't go for all the old culture war stuff. A lot of them don't care as much about all that. And I think that, you know, in the end, if you're against rights for people, just period, you're going to lose. History shows it. You're going to lose. You're against rights for people. And so there's a certain, you know, power structure that's been in power for hundreds of years that knows they're losing that iron grip, that they know that that's coming to an end. And I think that's what's caused a lot of this stuff going on right now. Granted, it's pretty bad and it's pretty out in the open. But something tells me that it's really got to come out in the open for people that have been asleep for a long time to wake up and go, hey, I'm not going to say that, Donald Trump in office is a good thing. I would never say that. What I'm saying is if people will finally look outside and what's going on outside their bubble and to people around them, and that people have the same needs, and just start seeing people as human. Basically, I love the metaphor of everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. I mean, if you're around in the 80s, everybody, it was everywhere. But it's true. Treat people like how you'd like to be treated. Remember to share.
Play nice in the sandbox.
Yes, exactly. Just little simple things like that. We would be a lot better off, I think. So I just try on a daily basis to do that in all my interactions with people. I work at a hotel. I have personal interactions with people all the time. And so it gives me a chance to put something positive out there. But with the writing, there's so much going on in the world, and so many things that can be fixed, and so many problems, and so many issues. And the mind gets spin out of control with possibilities. And I did that for a long time, and I still do. It's hard not to. But I remember it was when I saw Bill Ayers speak for the first time in Arcata. It was probably 2010. And I go up to him and I'm going to ask him this question. Here's a guy who's been in, around doing causes, obviously, which, some people would probably not agree with, but that could be a whole nother conversation. Anyways, I went up to him and I asked him, I'm like, I'm a 25-year-old college student. I really care about things going on, and there's so much going on. What do I do? I have no idea where to go. And he said, okay, just find one thing. Just find one thing and go for it. Because the only thing better than doing something is doing nothing. And so doing something, whatever it may be. Just being nice to your neighbor, just waving at somebody walking down the street. It's that kind of stuff that we've lost. I try to do that randomly all the time. And I can't tell you how many times I'll walk by somebody and wave at them, and they'll look at me like I have a problem. Like I'm looking them at the eye and I'm challenging them or something. But then I'll wave at somebody else who looks like they might have a grumpy look on their face, but who knows, maybe I just caught them at that right second, And then that frown will go into a big smile, and then they'll start having this just kind of warm energy around them. And then I think, well, what happens if that was the one thing that put this person into a good mood, that changed their outlook? And then they're going to share that with somebody else that they bump into. And people have done that to me all the time. It's one of the reasons I love this place. But, so, in the end, it's love. It's love for our fellow human beings, love for our fellow man, woman, and her adjective here. And so I just hope to, continue conversations. Because really, you can take the greatest people in history. You can take Martin Luther King. You can take Gandhi. You can, even Malcolm X after he came back from Mecca. You could take them, and all those people were able to do is take it that next step. When you're talking the greatest people in the entire history of mankind were only able to take it the next step. So, yes, we all want to make major change. We all want to do big things and great things and change the trajectory of our devolution, or however you want to, de-evolution. I don't know if devolution is a word, but...
Kind of fits right now.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Right?
Devil?
Colbert got, truthiness put into the dictionary. Thought that was cool. But, yeah, so... I love the fact that I'm given the opportunity to share and talk to people. I hope to just continue conversations going. And I'm not trying to equate myself with those people at any rate. I'm just saying that...
Every person has a contribution.
Yes. Yes.
And we have
All
to
do.
do that. Everyone
all do.
has to
Pick
do
that
it.
one thing and do the best you can.
Exactly.
Yes, right.
Exactly. That's it. That's it. And everybody's got that one thing, you know, whatever it may be. And sometimes life makes us forget about that, but we can't let it. Can't make it force us into the darkness. We control our destiny. We take care of ourselves specifically so we can take care of other people. You know, people get lost when they think that that's the only thing. That, you know, we just get caught in this kind of, oh, I'm building myself up and that's it, and there's nobody else. Well, there's a lot of people else, and, you know, they're not always going to pay attention to that man behind that curtain forever. So,
Emperor has no clothes.
as a jaybird,
That's right.
cool. So, that's about it, unless anybody had any other questions. I really appreciate y'all for, oh yes.
How long have you been writing?
Well, I've been writing ever since I was younger, really. I always wrote like short stories when I was younger, but I always kind of wanted to be like a broadcaster when I went to school, radio. I still wouldn't mind doing radio because I just love the voice work. But when I got into school, it was just all about the writing, and it was a goal of my own just to kind of focus myself when I turned 30 to put out my first book and then do a book a year after that. I turned 36 this summer, came out with my 7th, 8th, and 9th book this year, and it makes me feel good that it's focused towards somewhere. And yeah, I'm published myself, and yeah, I don't have a lot of, you know, Mom helps where she can, you know, and help marketing, and brought this wonderful crowd here tonight. But, you know, it's like going into the unknown, into the darkness. You know, it's scary, but it doesn't have to be. It's just unknown. It could be anything. It could be great. It could be the greatest thing we ever knew. But we'll never know until we take the step. And so, yeah, it scares the hell out of me every day. It scares me every time I sit down with a pen and lose myself and then realize it's 3 hours later and I have so much adrenaline going through me that I have to go sit by the river for 2 hours, because if I tried to have that thought process in my head enter into my normal life to doing daily things, it would cause major problems, at least for me. That's just how I found my, you know, process, I guess. But, so yeah, that's a roundabout answer. Sorry, I'm long-winded. It's the writer.
I like hearing that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's about finding your passion and finding your process, really. So.
Become a broadcaster. If you don't, you may regret it.
Well, he needs to put his books on, you know, tape too.
Yeah, I wanna do
There, he's got the ebooks, but
Audible thing. I'd love to do some kind of
he's got a
podcast.
good
I'd love to do
voice
that.
for that.
So many podcasts.
Yeah, I
really
mean,
trendy too.
I could
Yeah.
go off and talk for 30 minutes on just about anything. You know.
This is true.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I would love to do that. I'd love to do
You
that.
need to try that.
Oh yeah, no, I will. I think some kind of app or some kind of microphone, little setup. I don't know, something just easy I can hook up to the laptop and stuff.
Low tech.
Yeah, just to start. It's like I never rode a motorcycle in my life except when I was 10 in first gear and ran into a tree. But
I didn't even know that. Really? Oh, see how I find out? He's 36, for God's sakes.
yeah, I was going 5 miles an hour and I got scared.
I know, and it's a good thing, too.
Anyway, but it's like that. It's like people who ride a motorcycle. If you're learning how to ride a motorcycle, you don't want to get the biggest, baddest thing ever. You want to start off with something real.
Funny.
So yeah, something like that. There was a neighbor in Idaho. John.
Oh, okay.
The guy- the kid I
Look
used to
right.
always hang out with.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
With the
Jesus.
horses.
Right.
Anyway,
Oh boy.
yeah, I was outfitted with so many pads, it was ridiculous. Anyways, so, well,
And this book was actually written before Trump took office. So, what is that correct?
well,
Or
well,
did
that
this
was the
come
thing.
through?
I had talked a little bit in the third book about a guy running for president that was very similar to them.
Yes.
But in my mind, since some of the other things that came true I didn't want to write him winning the election in that book. I wanted to wait till the next book, but then it happened anyway, so I figured I had to include it and really just kind of drive that message home.
Yeah.
You know?
Every book is prophetic, though, because what is everybody talking about right now? Alabama. You wrote this last year.
Yeah. There's a whole political party now that's apparently okay with child molesters. So.
Yeah. Pedophile of the year.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Sickening. But, you know,
But the next book, tell a little bit about what you started on your, just a little tiny bit, the next one.
I'm about a third done writing the new one, about 120 pages in. And this one, basically...
He's channeling it. I mean, that's only
I'm building towards the end of the series, so this one, basically, at the end, everything falls apart. Everything, you know, there's a movement that's starting to form, but basically everything's falling apart. It's chaos. And so the next one's basically going to be kind of not re-educating, but kind of just really unifying people together and reteaching them like kind of a human way to think, and probably go a little bit into the education system and how all that works. And then by the end of it, there'll be a sustained movement against the president. And then the next book, basically, a whole new political system, they'll get elected, a whole new political system will go in. And I had a conversation with a friend a while back. I've probably written all the books I've written so far just to write that book that will come after the one that I'm writing now, because that's the one on the politics. And that basically will put every thought and idea of what a perfect governmental system would be. People will see what it's like, and people treat each other, not quite utopia, but something, you know, where everything really works on a human level. And then the last book of this series, to tie everything together, will be like 10 years later, and people will be living through how good society can be and how people can treat each other. But there'll be this small upswelling of people in the corner trying to turn things back, because apathy and complacency is starting to kind of wean back in because people have grown too comfortable. And so that lesson of that book will be basically everything can turn back with a choice. You know, the whole thing is built, the whole thing is out there, but it can turn back immediately with a choice. And so that's kind of how I wanted to end the series. How exactly that'll happen, I don't know. I have the skeleton in my head, but filling in the gaps is what makes writing fun. At least for me. That's why I don't do outlines. Yeah.
Writing outlines.
Yeah. I always... Exactly. I always felt like I put all this thought and... You know, all this thought into the outline, put all the ideas down there, and then when you go to write, it's like you're writing from this thing, and it takes all the creativity out of it.
Well, in the middle, you have a different idea.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like,
exactly, yeah.
Okay, I'll just add this.
Yeah, exactly.
Creative process.
Yes, it's interesting. The more it gets defined, for me, it was finding the time of the day when I could be most productive, and then realizing other times of the day I'm not going to be productive. So during those other times of the day, it began, well, what could I be doing during those times to make my productive times more productive? And then that came with taking care of myself and eating right and getting enough sleep and being kind and, you know, all of that. And then it really taught me how all of life's interconnected and how it really all feeds off each other. And it cycled back to what I was talking about in the first place. And it's just funny when you start paying attention to stuff, you know, synchronicities or, you know, whatever way you want to describe it, things just happen. You know, opportunities come about, good people cross our paths, you know, we just have to stay open to it.
Do you think you'll ever write a book with an emphasis on the tribal nations and how the U.S. government and the tribal nations have worked together and that kind of
Sure.
storyline?
Yeah. I mean, I could see some of that coming into the book because of how this one is starting, you know. But in that, it will be even tribal nations from this country and tribal nations from Canada could get together with tribal nation, you know, Aztec ancestors and Mayan ancestors and all the tribes that were through South America and Central America and all that too.
Indigenous people.
Yeah, exactly. That's why and he's probably been corrupted a little bit now, but Evo Morales in Bolivia, when he got elected, he was a native Bolivian. I mean, everybody, it didn't get brought up much when Bernie Sanders was running that he was Jewish, and the fact that we almost could have had a Jewish president, which would have been huge. But Evo Morales was a native Bolivian. I mean, if having a Jewish president was a big deal, could you imagine having a Native American president? Just how different everything would be. I mean, and granted, there's no reason we shouldn't. I mean, we've certainly, you know, there's been different tribal members that have been in, you know, Congress and stuff. Been a few. I can't remember names right now, but there's been a few before. But yeah, because I think that's important. That goes back into the history a lot, for sure. And especially when you're talking about oppressed people. Because that's what I want to, that's what I'm basically bringing people together, uniting. Everybody that's oppressed is feeling like the other people that are being oppressed, it's their fault. And that's one big thing I try to talk about in the book here too. Is, you know, the poor hillbillies out in the hills are going through the same economic woes as the poor black people in the city. And instead of blaming each other for their woes, they realize that the same people that are keeping them at each other's are keeping them all down, because they're trying to keep those people from uniting. And in that, I bring in all the, you know. So yeah, that could certainly work for the new book. I could see that coming in. Because I'm kind of setting it up right now. I kind of know where I want to go with it. Probably have one of Jason's friends or crew, or I don't know, whatever, his group. Probably have one of them try to run for the presidency, or maybe somebody else. I'm not sure yet. But so it's fun. It's fun. Gives me a chance to talk about these things.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Great. Well, I certainly appreciate everyone for coming and showing me a little support. I appreciate it. You know, being a struggling artist, you know, it's rough sometimes. Some months are tougher than others, but you know what? I sleep like a baby every night. Might not have a lot of money in my bank account, but I sleep like a baby. Because I'm being good to myself and I'm taking care of myself. And I hope other people can too. So.
Amen to that.